everybody, and welcome to our webinar, USA Warehouse Product Tour, Preparing for Peak Season 2024 Vertical Height Solutions. My name is Sarah Gomez. I am the host of the webinar today. It's great to see you again. So folks, it's time to get serious about peak season 2024. I was speaking with one of our Geekplus clients, and he mentioned to me that merchandise is already starting to come into the warehouse for this year's peak season. I said, wow, I can't believe it's that time again. It seems to creep up earlier and earlier each year. So our client knows where he's storing all that merch, but do you know? We here at Geekplus want to make sure your peak season needs are taken care of this year and every peak season thereafter. So today we have a 30-minute video tour. We're taking you through a USA 3PL e-commerce warehouse. And I have to tell you, as a Geekplus automation nerd, this is like Disneyland for industrial automation. The bots are incredible. I can't wait for you to see it. So before we go ahead and start our tour, we're going to deploy a poll to get to know a little bit more about you. So please go ahead and deploy the poll. All right, so our first question is, what is the unutilized clear height in your building? So please take a look at the options and select one. We will take a short break in about 20 minutes and we will give you the answers of that poll. Now, in order for us to have a dynamic webinar, I need your help. So please go ahead and ask some questions. I need you to go down into that menu and select the Q&A box and start asking questions. We have a live Q&A with Rick DeFiesta. I'll get his picture back on here. He's Executive Vice President for Sales and Solutions of Geekplus America, and he's going to be with us for the last 20 minutes of this webinar, answering all your questions. So please, please, please ask any questions you want. All right, everybody, it's time to go ahead and launch into our video tour. We will see you soon. Enjoy. And if you would like to communicate with our staff, you can also go ahead and type into the chat box. See you very soon.
Hey everybody, it's Sarah Gomez from Geekplus, and I'm super excited to have Rick DeFiesta. He is the Executive Vice President of Sales for Geekplus America, joining us in a US RoboShuttle System warehouse. Rick, I'm so happy to see you.
And Sarah, it's great to be here with you.
So our client is a online distributor of goods for one of the United States' largest online marketplaces. So this system back here is incredibly impressive, and we cannot wait to give you a warehouse tour. So first, Rick, I'm going to ask you, why would a international 3PL who is involved in e-commerce, why would they purchase something like RoboShuttle System?
So especially with the 3PL, meaning third-party logistics, they're providing services for other companies. So what they're looking for is flexibility. And in this case, with being in this building, they're also looking at utilizing the cube of the building. So one of the things that we're able to do for them is they can have multi-clients. And the thing about this is they have clients in the thousands, because you and I can set up a store and they would fulfill those orders and drop ship them to our customers from this facility. The inventory is constantly changing. The size of the product is unknown until it comes into the building. So by utilizing this tote type system, we're able to maximize the cube in this building and also within the tote, and plus have a large variety of items handled on a daily basis. So where we're standing right now is actually on the selection side, but it all begins on where it comes into the building. So we're going to take a walk and see it as it comes into the building and how it eventually gets into our system.
All right, let's go.
So again, this area here is our selectors, and each of them has their own individual workstation. So all of the work is guided by the software. So they're literally looking at a screen. The screen depicts where in the tote that you would pick up. You can see that had a yellow mark. The next tote shows 2 locations, and they'll pick up from that. It also tells them which of the bins to put it into. And you can see it's all graphic and numbers. So it's multilingual, and if you'll walk around this warehouse, you'll see people from very many nations and cultures. So the training time is minimal. So again, because they're just looking at a screen. Even I can pick from this system. So the other thing that this is monitoring is their efficiency or their productivity. In this warehouse, you're able to indicate what is the goal as far as picking. Today, their goal is 450 units per hour. Many of the selectors here are right there, but we also have a few selectors that are picking as high as 525, and that's displayed on the screen. So there's some gamification involved in some of our systems, is that people like to compete, so they're able to walk into their break room and see a display of who did what. So
Rick, I have a question for you. When it comes to traditional picking without any automation, how long does it take to train a new employee versus how long does it take to train a new employee with automation?
So in your typical warehouse, one of the main challenges of bringing on new people is, where is it? Meaning, where is aisle A? Where is bay 4? Where is location 6, right? So even though they know the operation, and in most cases they're using a handheld device, so they need to learn the handheld device. And they need, what does F12 mean? What does F4 mean? So they're learning the devices that they're using, and the biggest thing is, where is it? Well, one of the things about our solutions, and the term is called goods to person, is that, as you can see, the person is staying stationary in a workstation. The item is being brought to them, so they don't need to know where it is. It's right in front of them. So you almost instantly can learn this system. As I described, it brings the product to you in a tote. It shows you on the screen what you're picking, how many you're picking, where are you going to put it once you've selected it, and once you've completed that work, all you're doing is tapping the screen, and it brings the next tote to you. How long does that take to learn? So very, very simple. And the other thing is it's very, very accurate. You will never go to the wrong location.
Excellent. Let's go down here, and I want to see if we can see RoboShuttle. Okay, so before we move on from our warehouse tour, let's talk a little bit about the solution. So this is RoboShuttle System, which consists of two parts, right? So we have the big guy, we call RS, and we have these little guys called P40. So Rick, tell us more about the robots and how they work together.
So the RoboShuttle, as you can see, we obviously have a very high bay. So the RoboShuttle itself stays within the aisles. It's not as fast, but it has the ability to take care of the vertical. So we can have the ability. So unlike a fixed infrastructure type system, the term is used mini loads or ASRs crane, where they're on a fixed aisle, then they're dedicated to that aisle. We're able to have either one robot or multiple robots in the same aisle. So the tall robot takes care of the vertical. It selects a tote. So you can also see that we call what's called double deep. In other words, if you look in the tote spaces, there's one tote behind the other. So on the bot itself we have what we call a backpack. So we're able to take the front tote, in case we need something in the back, we take the front tote and we put it on the backpack, and then we retrieve the rear tote, and then we put the front one away. So why do we do that? So in a conventional system where you're doing what's called shuffling, in other words, that taking out that front tote to get to that rear tote, in a conventional system, you need to find a place to put that front tote. So what you'll typically do is end up with 10% or 20% of empty spaces just to have a place to put that empty tote so I can get that back tote. By us utilizing the backpack technology, what we can do is get close to 100% occupancy of the tote locations in our system. So we're taking up the same footprint, but we're not losing that 10 to 20% required by other technologies. But again, so our larger bot retrieves and puts away in the vertical space, and then we drop it down, and then as you can see towards the bottom, we have locations where we drop the tote, and the smaller bot, the P40, which has a scissors lift on it, is able to tunnel through the rack and pick up the individual tote and bring it out to the workstation. But as you can see, as it gets to the workstation, we bring up the tote to bring it to an ergonomically friendly height so that the selector doesn't have to reach down, but yet when we put it in the way to the system, we're not wasting space because we're able to drop down the tote.
So I want to just tell our audience that we have this transfer area. So the transfer area is where our big bot connects to our small bot, the P40, right? So what happens is RoboShuttle RS will reach way high up into the shelves and deposit the tote on the transfer level. And then little P40 is going to zoom right up, take that tote, and then zoom it away to a picker, right? So what's really impressive to me about this site is that there's so many P40s on the floor. I've never seen a site like this before.
Well, and what the intent of that is so that we make sure that the selectors always have something to pick from. So we design and we calculate and we simulate what's going to be needed to allow this selector to be efficient where they're not waiting to do work. The work is always being presented.
Yeah, it's incredible. And maybe the camera person can pan over and show the line or the queue of totes. So a picker never has to wait for a tote. P40 will switch out a tote in 1.5 seconds, as you can see. So really, there's always a P40 waiting to be picked, which means it's up to the speed of the picker to pick as fast as they can go. It's pretty impressive.
So obviously in this system, you're seeing a lot of product coming out. Well, that means we have to put product in. So we're going to start at the receiving station where items are brought in containers every day and replenished back into the system.
Let's see.
What we have here is this system has what we call an extendable belt conveyor. So you can see an open door over there. So what happens is the conveyor has multi-pieces where it actually extends into the trailer. So as they empty the trailer, the conveyor keeps extending in so that way the person doesn't have to walk and is able to pick up the item and place it directly onto the conveyor belt.
For inbounding, they chose a conveyor. What are some other ways that other warehouses who use RoboShuttle conduct inbounding?
We have what are called sortation robots, and we do have customers that utilize those. So what we can do, if we were to look at a Geekplus solution instead of the conveyor, is we can actually have that extendable that went into the truck, and at the end of it, we can put that scanner, and it would pass it on to one of our sorting robots, and then our sorting robots would then bring it to a station just like as you're seeing here. Any product that is determined to go directly into the Geekplus RoboShuttle system would be brought to one of these stations. In this, again, they have a conveyor system. There's what we call 4 fingers or 4 lanes, and in each of those there's 4 workstations, so there's 16 stations. So what happens is they bring that product over from receiving once they've verified it and they've determined it's going to be put away. Well, they bring it over to these work tables, and then they do a process which we call marrying. In other words, I now take a product, I put it into this tote, and I marry it to this location. And our system will know that the new item that has this barcode, we manage that inventory. So that's in the Geekplus software. So this system, since they have all those workstations putting away product, the product is being sent randomly into this area. So this has what's called a sorter on this conveyor. These are called downlines. And so there's no reading of the totes. So what they would probably do, or what they're probably doing, is what we call round robin. So in other words, I would send the first tote I see to that lane, the second one I see to that lane, the third to this lane, and just keep repeating that so they're evenly distributing the workload into the system. But what happens is, because I don't know what's in that tote, because I have multiple workstations at the same time putting it on the system, we have scanners on the conveyor system that identify that label that's on the side of the tote. And then it communicates to Geekplus to say, I am giving you this tote, and then we look up and say, what's in this tote? And how many are in this tote? So then it comes onto this section, and then one of our smaller P40s is able to come and pick up this tote and then tunnel in and put it into a location, again, determining where do I want to fit that item. So at the front, you saw that we have obviously many aisles and many levels. So one of the things that our system also does is distribute product. So that way I don't have, if I'm using black t-shirts, for an example, I don't want all my black t-shirts over here. I want to spread them out throughout the system so that anytime I need a black t-shirt, I'm going to look for the closest one that's to that workstation. So again, our system is constantly optimizing to minimize the time it takes to retrieve that item for me to pick.
And also it will optimize lower on the rack, as well as, like you said, closer to the picker and on the outside tote, right? Not the inner one, if it's a hot item.
Right. So exactly as Sarah just described, our faster movers are always going to be towards the front and towards the front of the system, towards the front of the double deep, and towards the lowest section, again, to minimize the transfer time to get to that item. So we create what we call a heat map. So the heat map is not necessarily just what's the closest up front, it's also what happens within the rest of the system. As you can see, the other thing that we do is we always put safety fencing on anywhere that we are at the backside of a system, so that we can safely have operators and people working around the system in the rare chance that something were either to be pushed or fall out. So this is a requirement around our systems.
I also wanted to mention that I see here a bunch of QR codes. Could you talk a little bit about how the robots position themselves according to these QR codes on the floor?
So as Sarah just mentioned, our system is what we call QR based. So you can literally see that we have a grid, right? So the bot is able to position itself using the grid. And also you'll notice that there is a square around the QR code in the middle. So we have a camera on the bottom that actually looks at that, and it uses the square to determine, am I square to the path, right? So it's very critical that you can see there's actually lines struck on the floor so that the bot is able to follow that line and determine that, yes, I'm in the right position, I'm in the right location. And the other is that it allows high accuracy. We're able to position within 10 millimeters of where we need to be. So the other thing is that our system is capable of, in the event that we have labels that can't be read, we can skip 2 QR codes, and as long as we see number 3, our system will continue. And if we do see a bad QR code, we actually create an error log in our system so that the supervisor can later go on and see that there was an error for a missing QR code, and then go out and there's a map that tells them where is that, so they can go out and make the correction.
We're going to take a brief detour and check out our charging stations. So you can see that there's charging stations for both the little P40 and the big RS. You want to tell us about these stations, Rick?
So one of the things that our system is, we do what we call smart charging. In other words, a lot of systems do what was determined as opportunity charging. In other words, they don't have anything to do, so they go to a charger. We don't operate that way. We actually monitor the status of the battery of each individual robot. These use lithium batteries. These are like the same batteries that are in your smartphone or in your laptop. So what does that mean? It means that as soon as you plug it in, it is starting to take a charge. Older technology, a battery would have to come up to a certain temperature and maybe take 30 minutes to an hour just to actually start charging and take a charge. Our batteries can be brought up to a service level within 10 minutes. So if there is a need for this bot, it would go ahead and release it. Now, if there isn't a task for this bot, it may sit here longer than that 10 minutes, but it's already stopped taking a charge. So same thing with the larger bots, the RoboShuttles. Again, they have the same lithium battery technology. The batteries that are within a Geekplus robot are purpose-built for us. In other words, we don't take a catalog and find a battery that's in some manufacturer's catalog and design around that battery. We have companies that build it to our exact specifications. And we also have every one of our batteries are enclosed in metal. So we design and build a very safe unit. As you can see, we have, in this case, hundreds are in here. So it's very important. Safety is a huge priority for Geekplus.
Let's take a moment while we're here to talk a little bit about why P40. So P40 is our runner. P40 moves underneath the racks. So one of the reasons why we have these double deep racks, aside from the fact that it supplies ultimate storage, is that it creates a robot superhighway where the P40s are able to run underneath in their own separate aisle, and RoboShuttle can have the aisle as well. So they're never crashing into each other. They're constantly moving side by side. So this P40 can run at 3.5 meters a second, which is like a human running at a pretty fast clip, right? So where we have the slower RoboShuttles in the aisles that can go up and down, we can have many, many P40s on the floor moving quite fast. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk about is how P40 can lift and go down, which is great for a picker when picking because it's ergonomic and it's comfortable for them. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, absolutely. So the intent again is that because we're retrieving and selecting, we needed the ability to go up and down. But to not take away space for storage, we wanted the bot to be able to travel at a very low height so that we can lower the height of the overall system. But yet, again, when it brings it to the selector, we don't want them reaching down or having to bend over to select the item, so it brings it up to, well, again, a ergonomically friendly height. We actually could adjust it for each individual workstation so that if you had a shorter person or a taller person, we could adjust it to that, so it is that customizable to the person if you wanted to do so.
Yeah, I'm a pretty short person, so they're going to have to put P40 nice and low for me.
Right, so you're not having to tiptoe to get over the top. Yes.
Exactly, yeah. And another great thing about it is that the tote is presented in a horizontal way so that the picker doesn't have to reach that far to get the items into the tote. So worker happiness and worker comfort is a big deal for us at Geekplus.
So as mentioned before, if you were to look down this aisle right now, you see 2 RoboShuttle robots. Earlier there were 4, and 2 of them came out and went to a different aisle. This is the one of the big benefits of a RoboShuttle solution is that depending on demand, we can have multiple robots deployed in an aisle to maximize the flow through that aisle. So we have a robot coming out right now. It's empty, so it will be coming out to change aisles.
Wow. Look at how incredible. They sense each other.
So our software actually knew that these 2 robots were going to come together and determine which one goes first and which one goes last. So just look at it like air traffic control, right? So if you look at a lot of our competitors use what they call obstacle detection or avoidance to determine which one will go first. So think of like a 4-way stop sign, right? At that small interchange, that area, they're able to determine who goes first, who goes second. Well, when you have a large system, you need a much higher view to plan that routing. And that's exactly what our RMS, our robot management system, or our fleet management system, does with our system. We know preemptively, just like they do with air traffic control, that these 2 items are going to converge. So here's how the plan is going to work. We're going to stop, we're going to turn, we're going to allow this one to go first, this one second. So that is included in our software.
I hope you like what you see. Those robots are so dynamic, aren't they? All right, everybody, let's go ahead and we are going to share the results of our first poll. What is the unutilized clear height in your building? So the majority of you said more than 12 feet. That's an incredible amount of space wasted, everybody. Luckily for all of us, RoboShuttle can be built to reach up to 36 feet or 11 meters high. No problem. Let's go ahead and deploy the next poll that we will give you the results in about 10, 12 minutes. All right, the second one is, which is more important, productivity or storage, or both? So go ahead and answer that. Okay, so now we're going to launch into the second half of our tour. This one is only about 10 minutes. You're going to learn in depth about RS, and also you're going to see our flagship shelf-to-person system. So let's go ahead and get started. Enjoy and keep asking those questions.
Here is RS. Just because it can reach up to 11 meters doesn't mean that that's fitting for all warehouses, right? RoboShuttle comes in a variety of heights.
So the mast on this can be adjusted to only extend to a certain height. So rather than having a lot of different models that are custom built, we have, this is an RS11. It is capable of going up to 11 meters high, but this building says it will not accommodate that. It is programmed to never extend beyond the 9.6 meters that this building is capable of doing. So this way, in the event that we need to service this or add additional robots, we're not looking at having to custom build a robot for this facility. We're able to take one either being built for stock or already being assembled and ship it directly here and then program it so that it does not exceed the 9.6. So if you look into the robot, you can see the suction cups, which are basically in the scissor behind it, where this unit comes out, extends, and uses suction to grab the tote to pull it in. And this, again, allows us to have closer centers on the totes. And you can see that in the totes to where there's very little space between the totes. In fact, there's a guide between the totes just to be sure that they don't bump into each other, because that's how close they are.
Yeah, so the difference between, so we've seen RoboShuttle before with the extendable forks, and it's my understanding that with the suction cup method, it saves an additional 20% in storage. That's incredible.
Yes, it is. And it also makes the rack system smaller. So it also, there's a savings as well. So there's plenty of advantages. But there are going to be customers that do want to handle corrugate, and we do have a solution for that. So earlier I mentioned that we use what's called a backpack. So as you can see, there's platens on the back of this robot, and they're actually designed so that they're almost equal with the shelf heights that are in the storage system. So why do we do that? Well, because since we do extract the one in the front, we don't want to have to create additional movement if we don't have to. And we're able to just retrieve the front item, turn, and place the tote that we're looking to move out of the way onto this backpack. And then they take the next tote that we do want to keep, put it on the next level, and then return the one that we just put here. So this is what allows us to be very flexible and not having to create empty spaces within the system, so that we can max or minimize the movement that it takes to retrieve a tote that's in the back. And so even though we have multiples of this, again, is to minimize the amount of vertical movement that needs to take place to retrieve that rearward tote.
We can have shelf-to-person, tote-to-person, and pallet-to-person in one warehouse. And this is proof because we have our flagship shelf-to-person P800 system in here. Please tell us once again, Rick, why do we have these two systems side by side?
So again, when this warehouse was launched in 2019, this was our flagship. This was our shelf-to-person, and it actually still is. In other words, it is our most versatile solution that we have. This particular rack is equivalent to a domestic pallet. In other words, a pallet today is 48 by 40. It's pretty much the industry standard used in the United States. The configuration of this shelf is also 48 by 40. So we could, if we wanted to, and they actually have some in here, where there's a pallet sitting on one of these bases. But in the meantime, what that allows us to do is we can create, in this case, a two-sided shelf that has 20-inch deep locations front and back. And we then have the option of having up to 48 inches wide as far as on the front side. But we also have the option to have it segmented to have multiple locations. So again, this is a 3PL. They do not have a standard stock in this building, so it gives them the flexibility to change the size of the locations very easily. So this still is the most flexible, but as you can see, it only goes approximately 8 feet. And this customer did not want to have to relocate to find a bigger building. So we were able to deploy this RoboShuttle system to give them that cube utilization they were looking for.
We can see our P800s charging right here.
So as mentioned before, the same thing. These are smart charging. So when it's determined that a bot is getting down to a certain level, we will send it to a charger. As you can see, we distribute the chargers around the building. It's located near a column, so it facilitates an easier power drop. And this way, the bots do not have to go to a home location and travel. So you'll find these areas of chargers spread out throughout this building. And if this customer decided to want to incorporate the two systems together, the RoboShuttle and the P800, into the same workstation, that would be an option. But again, as mentioned, they're actually, in this case, downsizing this system, right? So they can actually expand this system even more than it is today.
Yeah, so if we want to compare the P40s to these P800s, right? So we can talk a little bit more, and you can see with the P40, they're carrying a tote that holds up to 40 kilograms, but these big guys, right? They can carry up to 1,200 kgs, which is as much as a American bison, right? So these big guys can really, really carry an entire shelf versus those super fast P40s that zip around with one tote on them, huh?
Right. It's a big bison, 2,200 pounds.
Look at these guys.
So you can see that these bots are much more nimble, much more quick. And mentioned before, our software is controlling the flow of these bots. And actually what we have here is we have the grid in front of the workstation where we queue product up, but we also have what we call the highway. So just think of just like in a car where you have lanes going on, all your lanes are going one direction or the other direction. Well, it's the same thing here in the Geekplus highway. We have two lanes that are, in this case, going away from us, and we have two lanes that are coming towards us. So this way we're able to move this traffic very quickly and minimize any additional changes of direction because we have this constant flow. But as they need to exit the highways into the workstations, they just do a right angle turn, go into the workstation, go into a queue, and when they're complete, they come out into the highway and they move along the front of the rack. And once they get into a lane that they're going into, they just quickly turn and go into the rack.
Here we are at a picking station, Rick, and there's various ways that workers can scan the items. Can you tell me about this one right up here?
So what you can see is that we have an overhead scanner, and the selector also can use what we call a ring scanner. So they wear this on their hands, and this way it gives them hands-free operation. It has a simple button on the side that will scan the item. So why are we scanning? So when the tote is presented and we're selecting from it, we are verifying that we have the correct item. So we don't assume that just because it brought this tote and is telling us what we're picking out of that tote, that we have the correct item. Because again, we have some totes that have compartments in them. And, sometimes people make a mistake putting away. It may have fallen into the wrong compartment. So we always want to verify that we have the correct item. So how do we do that? Again, we can pick the item, and then this scanner, we can either hold it up and let this scanner see the item, or we can use the finger scanner and scan directly off of the barcode of that item. So this way we can give our customers 100% assurance that they have the correct item.
Yeah, and this scanner is pretty innovative because all that the picker has to be doing during batch picking is just holding the item and it will automatically scan.
Right. And the other, again, we emphasize safety. So what you see on the side here, these yellow bars, these are called light curtains. So what happens is if a person were to stick their hand in between these two curtains while a robot is moving, that robot would stop. So, but when a robot is in the correct position to pick, we do what we call muting the light curtain, which allows the person to move their hand through the station, pick the item, pull it back out, and this way, until their hand is removed, will the robots index one to the other. So safety is paramount in all of our systems.
All right, everybody. Well, we've come to the end of our tour. Rick, I cannot thank you enough. Your knowledge in this industry is unmatched, and it was a true pleasure to be able to spend some time with you in a RoboShuttle System warehouse here in the United States. Really, really so exciting. Rick DeFiesta, the Executive Vice President of Sales for Geekplus America.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for joining us on our little tour here of this wonderful automated warehouse.
Hey, Rick, nice to see you.
Great to see you and welcome. I know we have an audience pretty much around the world, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon to wherever you are. And yes, thank you for attending our webinar here.
It's a really, really great day. So, Rick, we're going to go ahead and start off with our second poll question. Productivity or storage, which is more important? The majority of people said both. Rick, can we have it all with RoboShuttle System?
Well, we can, and those questions are leading questions as to, what we consider in the design, right? So sometimes if it's just storage, then it's a larger rack system, more totes. But when you need to increase your productivity, you're able to just add robots. So it speaks to the scalability and flexibility of our systems. So you can have the best of both worlds. But in many cases, you're starting off because you need storage. You've either outgrown your building. This will potentially postpone you having to move. But you're not committing to this higher productivity that you're anticipating and seeing, say, 5 to 7 years from now. You're able to just easily expand it with bots, and that increases your productivity.
There you go. So, Rick, we have so many questions. People went crazy, and I love it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off. We have a question from Rika Taige, and he says, "Is the speed for P40 configurable?"
Absolutely. There are going to be situations where, for example, you may have a crossing area for egress for during breaks, and we can integrate that into our solutions into the highway or a part of the path. So we may create an area where the bots actually slow down, and there could be either some type of activation to have that bot stop and start and clear that area. We also have situations where it's not just the P40, but when we're dealing with larger loads that potentially could be unstable, then we would be able to control those speeds as well. So all of our bots are configurable as far as speed, and those are all taken into consideration both in the design and deployment of the system.
Great. Thank you very much. The next question I'm going to ask is, do you use in-racking sprinklers in the high bay racks to mitigate fire risks?
So that's something that is based on local regulations, also on what you are using in the system. For example, if you are using food grade products where you might have oils that are more flammable, you may require a section of the system to have actually more sprinklers per level. Or in this case where you saw here at this site that we toured, they actually required, because of the height, their local requirements we needed to add sprinklers. So again, that's dictated by your local regulations. And we do work very closely with that as when we get into the design.
How about this one? What is the max weight limit for a tote in RoboShuttle, as well as the max weight for RoboShuttle itself?
Okay, great question. So we actually have two designs for RoboShuttle. The one that you've seen in this system happens to use what we have as a suction cup extractor. The benefit of that is that the totes were able to be closer, but it does affect the overall capacity of that tote. So that tote is going to be approximately in the 45 pound range. We have another style where we have arms that go out that have grippers that are able to push and pull. That particular solution can handle totes up to 80 pounds. The backpack is only used when we're transferring from the front and trying to get to the back. We don't really transport the whole back side of the bot full. That's why we have the P40s. But the overall capacity in the vertical on a bot is approximately 250 pounds, which far exceeds whatever you would put on the backpack in multiple locations. But again, it wasn't designed to carry a full load as far as the solution goes. Can it in slower environments where you may not need the P40? Yes, the bot will transfer and transport multiple totes to a workstation.
And you did an extensive portion of our warehouse tour about the backpack, and you showed the backpack. And I would like to remind our audience that we're not going to be sending this webinar recording out to everyone. If you would like a copy, please email sales@geekplus.com and we will send you a copy. All right, Rick, here's a nice and easy one. How do clients clean under the storage?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, when you do it, you would do it when you're not selecting, so the robots are not moving randomly as you're trying to go through. The aisles can easily be done with some type of mechanization. We are looking into other types of bots that can go underneath the racks. But most of our customers either do have to go through and sweep, and or some of them use blowers and just kind of clear the dust. So a lot of that's going to be dictated by your particular warehouse environment. Most non-temperature controlled buildings, it's recognized that the doors are open, so they do accumulate more dust. But again, and typically it's just a matter of using brooms and or an automated sweeper to go through the main aisles.
Right. Here's another great one. What if an employee puts too many items in a tote?
So our software actually will look into the item master and tell you that you have too much in the tote before it even goes into the system. So everything as far as cube and weight, we can do directed put away. We have two ways. What you saw on this particular site, they have a receiving function. They then audit, and then they send it over to a decant station where they configure the totes. And the totes are configured on the fly. They're not sitting there with 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16. So they can send product and say, okay, we want this one into 4 compartments. Every one of the totes, as mentioned in the video, that they have the option of having 1 and up to 8 locations in this particular scenario. So the system will recognize that you have put in too much into this tote and tell you that it's overweight.
Great, thank you. This question comes from Benjamin James. Do you have a solution for pallet storage and retrieval?
We absolutely do. It's called our 4-way shuttle. We have a few of those running into here in the States and around the globe. One of the benefits of our solutions is that we have what are called hybrid. So we can create a system that can deliver a pallet quantity, a shelf quantity, a tote quantity to the same workstation, and expand those individually as your needs require. So absolutely, we can, and then those pallets are, as called out, can be up to 2,200 kilograms.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 1,200 kilograms, 2,200 pounds. Yes.
We're a one-stop shop. We have many different solutions. Today, we're highlighting RoboShuttle systems, but we've also done webinars on many different systems. And if you go to www.geekplus.com, you can take a look at all of our solutions. Also, our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn, we have tons of product features to suit you in pallet, shelf to person, tote to person, everything. All right, thank you. The next one comes from Rika Taigi. Again, how do we determine the optimum number of P40s required in a warehouse?
So that's dictated again by productivity and the size of the system, right? So obviously, the larger the system, the potentially the further the travel. So that would require additional P40s to make those travel distances. Again, depending on your SKU mix and or if you have multi-clients, we can actually create vertical warehouses within the system, so we can avoid a lot of cross traffic from one end of the system to the other by consolidating certain areas. So again, in the design, that's what's going to prove out. And again, as mentioned in the video, we can do simulations. So it is completely dictated by throughput requirements and the size of the system.
Thank you. Syed Fazal says, I noticed in your tote system that the racking frames have base plates that appear to be above the floor. Can you explain the purpose of these base plates and how they impact the system's stability and installation requirements?
So that particular shelf supplier, that is their design. It does allow for very quick leveling of the shelf system compared to having to put shims. So you can install the shelf system and then use a laser and with that level out the system using this base plate. Can that be used everywhere? The answer is no. As we all know, in the United States, we have varying seismic requirements. If you're on the far west coast, that style of base plate is probably not suitable. And again, we work with all the manufacturers and engineering firms to determine what is the best design for that base plate. But that particular base plate could be used in that seismic zone, so that was the selection made.
Thank you. Here's another easy one. How often is maintenance needed?
Yes, great question. The bots themselves do have what would be considered consumable parts. Obviously, there's wheels. So on each of the bots, there's 2 drive tires, and then we have 4 casters. The design of the casters is it's like an independent suspension. It's not just casters on a bot, because we have imperfections in the floor, we have stopping and starting. So the caster design is to minimize any tilting of the bots as it's traveling, and again, as it accelerates and decelerates. So the drive tires and casters are replaceable items. Depending on how many shifts you're running, we typically see about a year requirement that you would then potentially replace drive tires and casters. More often casters, because they are smaller, more often casters than drive tires. And we actually have equipment that is able to raise or flip our bots, to make that very simple. In most cases, you can replace the casters on a bot in less than 40 minutes. So it's something very easy to do. And if you happen to have an internal maintenance team, they would be trained to do this. There's 4 hex bolts that hold each caster. Pretty straightforward to do.
Thank you for that. In practical applications, can the combination of PopPick and RoboShuttle solution achieve mixed storage of large and small parts?
Absolutely. So we actually have done layouts and designs where RoboShuttle was what I would call the forward reserve to a PopPick solution. So this way I'm able to maximize the cube, but I'm able to get the productivity of a PopPick solution. And I know many of you may not know what the PopPick is, but it's a highly automated solution where we bring a shelf filled with totes to a workstation, and we extract the totes out of that workstation and deliver them down to a ergonomic height so you can select from. So it's delivering multiple totes at the same time to the workstation. But that solution is limited to approximately 12 feet. So again, you want to kind of minimize, if you're trying to minimize the footprint of your solution, we can use RoboShuttle to give you the forward reserve, and you would automatically replenish pop pick from RoboShuttle as one type of solution. And you can put your faster movers in the pop pick, and then put in your slower movers and leaving a RoboShuttle and have them delivered adjacent to the pop pick station for selection. And you can do the same thing using our shelf to person solution, where adjacent to the pop pick workstation would deliver a pallet or shelf to person, so that you can have that combined pick without having to do downstream order consolidation.
Oh, Rick, I feel like a RoboShuttle pop pick warehouse should be our next tour. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Great.
But not in the middle of summer.
Okay, we'll wait till it cools down a little bit. All right, our next question. In the event of a short pick or zero pick, will the P40 bring the tote to a dedicated drop-off or troubleshooting area?
So our workstations are multifunctional. So you have workstations that do put away, you have workstations that can do selection, and you can have workstations that do stock taking. So we would not immediately take that discrepancy to a workstation from just selecting. But the system, when you're selecting, and if it happens to be short, you would tell the system it's short, it would note that it's short, but it would put it back into circulation. Now, it would be considered either an empty tote now, right? But again, till you verify that it's truly empty and short by a stock taker, would you send it back as an empty tote? The fact that we're using compartmentalized totes, you may be short on one, but you may have other items in that tote that still need to be selected. So we wouldn't necessarily take it out of the system so that you can pick those items in there. It's highly likely that that particular product or SKU is available in another location. So our system would go find it and bring that to the workstation so we can complete the order. It would only be that if that was the absolute last item in the warehouse, would you actually have to short the order. But the system would be able, again, bring that item so that you don't have to short that order if it's available somewhere else. So later in the day, when you might have to do an audit or inventory or cycle counting, you would tell the system, bring me everything that had a discrepancy. It would be then that the selector can go in, the stock taker can take that audit and note and verify that, yes, they would look for look in the other compartments just to make sure it didn't accidentally fall into another one. Because that's not something you want the selectors doing. You only want them to pick. You don't want to be having them necessarily trying to find out why something is incorrect. You just want them to go ahead and go on. That's for the stock taker to take care of. So once they verify that, yes, this is absolutely correct, that it is incorrect, then it would update the system, and then you would have that compartment available for a put away or replenishment when needed.
Thank you. Our next question is, can Geekplus systems work in freezer and cooler environments?
So the RoboShuttle and P800 or shelf-to-person solution can work in a cooler. We do have some applications where the shelf-to-person is running in a freezer. The shuttle can run in a freezer, but there's a but. And we saw this last winter about some of the electric vehicles having issues up in the greater upper north Midwest, which was you can't charge the batteries as fast. They do deplete faster. They don't last as long. So again, if you are in that environment, you need to take all those things into consideration. So we do kind of, in general, prefer to stay above freezing. So 40, so refrigerated. But in the freezer environments, you know, you really have to look at it. Does it justify the number of bots that it would take to be able to keep the batteries charged? And also, you have to think about, is it a 3-shift operation where the batteries are constantly in use? If it was a 1-shift, then the batteries have too much time to get very cold, and then again they can deplete just by the temperature. So the answer is yes, but there is a but.
Thanks. We'll have one last question from Vivek. What happens to the robots in the event of an unexpected power loss or system malfunction? Do they stop immediately, or do they continue operating until battery drain?
So if you had a situation where you had a complete power outage, you know, are the workstations working? Is the controller working, right? Are your access points in your network, are they working? So the bots themselves are task-based. They don't get downloaded with a lot of information. They're basically told, go do this. And once you confirm that you've done that, we give you the next task, meaning go here, pick something up. And then from there, it would say, okay, bring it to this workstation. So the short answer is the batteries could continue to run up to probably an hour, hour and a half. But the question would be, is the rest of the system running? And, you know, so if you had a complete power outage, there's going to be highly likely that the Wi-Fi or the access points are no longer communicating with the bots, so the bots would actually stop. It would actually flash a color telling you, I'm not getting any type of wireless signal. So if you were to have a extended period of downtime, we would actually recommend that you start telling the bots to or turn them off so that the batteries don't completely deplete where they're sitting. So the answer is it depends. But yes, they can run, they can finish, but we do not recommend running them to the point where the batteries are depleted.
All right, Rick. Well, thank you so much for that. I would like to remind everybody, sales@geekplus.com is the email address that you need to email if you would like a copy of this webinar, our warehouse tour. If you go to our LinkedIn page or our YouTube page, you can find cases, you can find daily content on all of our solutions. I would like to thank Rick DeFiesta, EVP of Sales and Solutions for Geekplus America. We're one heck of a team, Rick, and I really, really appreciate all that you have done for this webinar. It was a fun one, and I can't wait to do it again. Everybody,
Yes,
thank you. Thank you so
thank
much,
you, Sarah.